want to thank Moshe Uri for hosting us and also the inspiration he gave me this morning. Scottsdale, he's giving such b'shefa, so Bar Shalom responds kefil kiflayim with shefa of gezunt and parnasa and nachas and chol too.
Amen.
I hope so far my weekend here in Scottsdale area has been an inspiration to me. I hope we could all stay in touch. This mimer as well as all the other ma'amarim I gave Motzei have been recorded and are available on my website, evanshasiya.com, EVENSHESIYA.com. Go and there's plenty of shiurim there, and you could join our mailing list. You'll be alerted whenever new shiurim are posted. So today we read the Teichacha, and the Teichacha appears in two places. In this week's parsha, it also appears in Parshas Bechukosai, and after the midrashim in Parshas Bechukosai address the concept of the klolos. And I want to read you the very first medrash in Medrash Rabbah in Parshas Bechukosai. It references this week's parsha. In Bechukosai telechu hadod d'chsiv chishavti darki yashir ragai dosecha. So if you walk in my statutes, so the Medrash tells through the pasuk, the David Melch says, I thought about my path and I brought my legs back to your mitzvahs. Omar David. So David Melch said, Ribono Shalom, b'chol yom yom ha'isi machashiv omer l'mokom ploni beis tira ploni sani holech v'yu ragai mevios ha'isi l'batei knis v'batei midrashos hadod echsiv v'ashir ragai odosecha. The first shot is that David Melch says to Ribono Shalom halavai on us, this madrega, that I thought I was going to business, I thought I was going to do that, but my legs, v'ashiva ragai, my legs just took me back to the base medrash, right? Halavai aleinu, right? Right? So that's the first pshat in the Medrash. Then there's the Medrash, another pshat. Ravuna, b'shem Rav Acha, Amar Chishavti matan scharan shal mitzvahs esaron shal veres v'ashir g'al dosecha. So that I did a cheshbon, what the schar is for mitzvahs and what the loss is if you do averos v'ashir g'al. So then I bring myself back to your mitzvahs because I realize going against your ratzon is a lot to lose, and to keep your ratzon is a lot to gain. Then another pshat in the Medrash, that Nachasan Rei Lazar Avina Machshat Vashkot Torah Im Bechukosai Tleichu Maksar Vasatishon Bartz Vim Lo Tishmili Maksiv Taman V'Yasafti Yasra Eschem. I compared the brachas in the beginning of the parsha, whether it's this week's parsha, whether it's Parshas Bechukosai. I contrast them with the Tochacha, and I see it pays to do the mitzvahs, get the brachas, and it does not pay to go against the Ratzon Hashem. So this is the point I wanted to get to, this final shot. Rav Abba Braid Rav Chia B'Shem Yosan Amar Chishavti brachas Chishavti klolos. Says so Chishavti darkis. I thought about the brachas in the Torah and I thought about the klolos. Brachos me aleph vad tov. The brachas go from aleph to tov. It's easiest to explain with the brachas in Parshas Bechukosai because im b'chukosai tleichu im, and it ends off v'olech eschem komemiyut. So it goes from aleph to tov, right? And but the klolos mivav ad hey. But klolos go from letter vav to hey. V'im lo sishmuli. That's easier to explain for the Torah as well. Ve'ein koneh is how the Torah ends off. So it starts from v'im lo tishmuli to ve'ein koneh. It goes from vav to hey. So the brachas go from aleph to tav, and the klolos go from vav to hey. V'lo shafuch. Not only that, it's only from two oisius, from vav to hey, but it's also in the reverse order. It should be hey vav. It's vav hey. So, Amar Avavin, Im Zachis Ravechem calls the brachs, Im Zachis Tarosai, Rachsim, Bechukosai Tleichu. The lesson that the klolos are from Vav to Hey, that's not Osios Kasidron, right? That easily, if we do good, Ribosh will just flip it around, and the brachas, the klolos rather, are Chayzer Librachas. David HaMelech is really seriously wondering, what's better? The brachas or the klolos, man, how do I choose? And he makes his decision. Well, let's look at the letters, right? That the brachas are aleph to tav, right? And the klolos are from vav to hey. That's a ripoff, right? Because it's only two oisius. The brachas are all the 22 oasis, right? And the close just 2 oasis. Now that's in the wrong order. That's it. I'm going with the brachas. What's the shot? Right. So what's going on over here is something very, very teeth, right? It's, of course, if we're talking about pleasure, right? Nice is nicer. That's not a question, right? That the brachas are preferable, right? But David Melch is asking a very serious inquiry, right? So as we said in the title for his presentation, it does really hurt, but is it real? Right? It's a serious question over here. Is there reality to the klolos, right? Are they equally as real as the brachas are? Right? Is the ra just as equally real as the toiv? A very deep philosophical inquiry, right? Because my personal pleasure aside, right? I want to know whether the sitra de kedusha is everything that exists, or is there real room, chas v'shalom, for sitra? It's because if there is real space in reality for ra, you fall in there, you're stuck. And if there's real chas v'shalom, it goes deeper than that, right? If there's any reality to ra, I'll make a allegiance with them, chas v'shalom. Rosh Shiva, Rav Yaakov Weinberg, you used to challenge us in a mind experiment, right? Let's say you're a country in the Middle East, and you're approached by the United States, and they say, we want to make a base, in your country, and if you refuse us, you're in trouble with us. Right? Al Qaeda, comes to you with the same offer, right? We want to make a base of operations in your country, and if you refuse, you're in trouble with Al Qaeda. Which one would you choose? Right? If leave truth, justice, and the American way, leave that all aside. That's all platitudes. You're concerned with the safety of your people. What? Al Qaeda. That's from a pure logical view. That's the correct answer. Because it's go through the scenarios, right? Just think through the possibilities. You only have one possibility that you're safe, that you're with the United States, and the United States wins and vanquishes Al Qaeda. Nothing left of them. That's the only one scenario, right? You're with the United States, and the United States loses. What's Al Qaeda going to do to you? Right? You are right. You're in Al Qaeda, and Al Qaeda wins. Matov, right? So now, let's just say you're with Al Qaeda, and the United States does win. What are they going to do to you? Nothing, because they're good, right? The good, they don't have it in them to right, but Al Qaeda is bad, right? So the worst that happened to you, right? You're triggered with the United States, and they beat you. They'll probably rebuild you. Probably the best thing that ever happened to you, right? Right. So as Rosh Shiva further explained, there is no way in pure logic, if good and evil exist equally, if they're equally as real, there is no way to ever defeat evil, right? Because even if the good, let's say United States outguns, right? Al Qaeda, right? But they have no morals, so they'll just move the confrontation past a red line that you're not willing to cross. Right? Unfortunately, Hashem Yerachim, why can't Israel just finally defeat the Palestinians? Why? Just finish it already. You outgunned them. It's not possible because they use their kids as human shields. They launch rockets from hospitals, right? They take it past a red line that the good guy's not willing to cross. Right? So why does the good win? I just proved to you. You're always safer siding with the evil. And you shouldn't do that. I'll explain to you, right? But I just explain to you. That's David Melch's inquiry. Does Ra have mahus to it? That's what he's asking. So niflamod, what's marumas over here, right? So the first thing is that he sees that brachas are from Aleph until Tav, and the klos are only from Hey to Vav. So the first point is that that all the oisius are in the Taiv, all right, and the Ra only has the space between two oisius. Right? So what's beyond that? So the Rambam in the Mor Nevuchim, when he discusses this issue, so he points out an amazing thing. All right, he says, evil only exists, right, in a very, very, only in fragments. Only in fragments. If you look at Klal HaOlam, if you look at the Klal, right, it's good. As the Rebbe himself attests, as we created the Klal of Maisa Bereshis, Re'el Kitov. Right? If you look at the cosmos, it's an amazing place. It's an amazing place, right? And the suffering is generally in individuals, right? Individuals or particular pratim, right? The suffering is in pratim. The klal is toiv, right? So so let's say chas v'shalom, right? A person say he has a miserable life, right? But he's one person out of millions. He's a speck in history. He's a speck in the cosmos, right? Right? Yeah. Right. All right, so a person has to understand that if he's upset with the life that he has, right? How big is his life? So so God is unfair, the world's unfair. Mapito, right? You have to look at the cloud, and if you look big, and that's what it means. Brachas me aleph vad tov. It's alluding to this word of the Mor Nevuchim, right? That you have to look big. If you look big and you see the whole cosmos, it's ma'rabu ma'asech Hashem. It's niflamoid. Because whatever you could point to as being wrong, dok v'tishkach, it's pratim. It's a pratistic thing that happened here, or particular individuals. It's only in the space of 2 oisias. So now someone might say, well, how's that supposed to make me feel better, right? How's it supposed to make me feel better, right? And this carries over to a question someone here asked me a few hours ago regarding the remarks that I said this morning. That the Goyin, could, be happy that he fulfilled Ritzono Shel Makom, that he did the mitzvah of Dalet Minim, and someone else got the schar. So, but he didn't get the schar. The divine intent to be mative to him wasn't fulfilled, just both in Klali. Right, the key to this is something niflamo that Rav Shimon Shkop writes in his Hakdama to the Sha'arei Yosher. Right, in that monumental work, he talks about the conflict that there is versus working on your own shleimus and being mashpia to help others. And he talks about it was raging in him. Should he concentrate on his own learning, or he was the biggest Rosh Hashiva of his time, and he had thousands and thousands of Talmidim. He thought it's a conflict. Serve the klal or work on your own shleimus, right? Seemingly, it's a contradiction, but he says it can't be, right? Because no one does, klal work more than the Ribbon Shalom, right? And no one's more perfect than the Ribbon Shalom. So personal perfection, right, and being mative to others can't be a contradiction. And he says it's a matter of perspective, right? How do you define me? What's the I? So if you just say that the I is just my body, and my Dalet Amis and not more, right? So then if that's your perspective on self, then your giving to others is depleting from the time and resources you have for yourself. But maybe I is my community. Maybe I is my city. That's all part of the I, right? Maybe I is, the whole cosmos. And the I is a cog in an amazing machine. So if I define myself in a big way, my chelik, right, in Klal Yisrael, my chelik, I am a part of Klal Yisrael. I am part of the Rebbe Shalom's world. So then the stira is miyushav, because if the nakuda of I extends to the whole of reality, I view myself as my role in reality. So to help others is to really help myself, right? But you have to have a big perspective, if you have a very, very mitzumtzum perspective on yourself, that you are just your Dalet Amis, so then you don't care about how things are good for others, and you also don't want to serve and help others, because that comes at your expense, Right? But if you define yourself as I'm part of Klal Yisrael, Klal Yisrael Ravim Zelazeh, then that's the me. The me is Klal Yisrael. So to be mative and to help others attain shlemus is your shlemus. Right? And that's how we could get some solace if a person feels, okay, but I'm just a prat and I'm not having a good life, but so you're miserable and you have kashas on the Ribbono Shel Olam because you're viewing yourself as the entirety of reality. Put yourself in context of the whole bria, right? And it's just like if Baruch Hashem you're healthy, right? But you have a little bit of an infection of your toe, right? Yeah. You thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have to have that view of yourself. You're just one toe in reality. So the Goyen also views I'm Klal Yisrael. Me is Klal Yisrael. And if I did a mitzvah and there was hatava to Klal Yisrael, I fulfilled the divine Ratzon L'Heitiv. Right? Right? But then it goes deeper, right? Which two oisius are the prat? It goes from vav to hey, as opposed to hey to vav. What do the letters hey and vav represent? Right? So the davar niflamo that's brought down in Sfarim, right? That hey represents chaimer, matter, and that's why hey is it's like the most spread out letter, right? With a lot of gaps, right? Matter without form. So it's spread, and it's disjointed because matter without form is disjointed. Hey is chaimer, right? Vav is tsura, form. Right, because it connects. Vav is a connector. It's a line that connects two dots. It's to put form on the matter. Now, the Isis go hey Vav because it goes from shapeless and formless chaimer to tsura. Take a look at Bria Olam. Varetz haisa tov vavo. That's how it starts. So the first instance of creation, matter was created at the first instance of creation. Right, but it was tov avo, and then in course of the 6 days, and that's all giving tsura to the chaimer. Take a look, yitzira savlad. So Gemara says the first 40 days it's maya ba'alma, right? First it's just water, like the world was at the first moment of creation, and then after Arba'im Yom there's tsura savlad. Right? That's the progression that there is in the bria, and everything is that way. Right, you plant a seed in the ground, it decays, right, and then then the tsura starts taking place, and things move from chaimer to tsura. So here's something I heard from my Rebbe Moshe Shapiro. Chamisha miodea. Excellent, right? Right. Chamisha chum sheiter. Shisha miodea. Very good. So said my Rebbe, Moshe Shapiro, that's the relationship that Torah Shebechsav has to Torah Sheba'al Peh. Torah Shebechsav is the chaimer, it's the raw material. But it remains that there is not even one mitzvah that you could do based on Mikra, based on Torah Shebechsav alone. Even Bris Milah, it never says where to cut. Right? It doesn't say where. Right? Right? There's not a single mitzvah that you could do that had, so there's good material. What? What?
For example, kibbut.
Yeah, but we don't know what the Gedorim are, right? You don't know what kibbut is, right? If your parents ask you to jump off the roof, are you have to do that? Right? Well, no, I'm saying, so without the Torah Sheba'al Peh, there's no tsura, but there's chaimer. There's like good values, in general, you should be mechaber parents. It's like a good. What?
I understand the last places, the Zacha is very, should be very.
No, you don't know if it's you have to do it prepare. Yeah, there's not. So I think that's the relationship that Torah Sheba'al Peh has to Torah Shebechsav is a Tzura Chaimer relationship. The Torah Shebechsav gives us the Chaimer, the material, and that's very valuable material. It's a lot of, you get the gist. There's a lot of Musar, but the Tzura, right? The Tzura comes from the Torah Sheba'al Peh, right? So there's a Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. So Reb Tzadok HaKohen in one of his books says it's slightly different that 5 represents flat space, flat, right? So the 4 corners and the center. 6 Zok Reb Tzadok, right, represents 3 dimensions because 3 dimensions each have 6 points. There are 6 vav ktsavos, right? Let's say width has right left, height has up down, and depth has in, out. right. So Torah Shabbal Peh makes Torah go 3D. You know how to put it into action, right? Right. That's in create. That's the Rebbe Shalom style, that things go from Chomer to Tzura. So even in our limud, we start ben Chomesh lemikra, ben Eser lemishnah, right? Just like the kid is developing, right? And that's what maturing is. Get more and more of a Tzura. Right, more and more of a tzura. So also in our learning, we go from mikra to mishnah, we go from chomer to tzura, and from there to even more and more refined tzura. Right? So what dok v'tishkach, an amazing thing, right? Anything that you'll call klola is that there's a reversal of the process. There's a regression of something losing its tzura and reverting back to chomer. Right? Right, health, God forbid, you're breaking down, you're losing the tzura, aging, any form of decay, any form of lack, right? Because, the matter is always there, because we know the law of conservation of matter could be neither created nor destroyed. Well, in calamities, what's being lost is the tzura. So that's what it means, close mivav lehe. It's going in the reverse order, right? The process of creation is being reversed. You're regressing from vav back to hey. Right? Dok v'tishkach, everything's that way. Anything you'll call bad, if you analyze it, whether the economy's bad, everything, a certain tzura is being lost. There's a certain aspect of chaos that was introduced, and that's what's creating the calamity. So now you have to ask yourself, right? If everything goes from chomer to tzura, right? As is go from let's say Yetziras Avlat, first 40 days Maya Balma, then he gets a tzura, and then he gets and the Indian of becoming a bar mitzvah, right, and becoming a married man. Then these are all madregas of shemas. It's all more tzura, right? It's a refinement of the tzura. It's not chomer, right? So now, why is it that past your prime, right? So things go the other way. Why does something not last forever? Why does it go? At one point it goes, and then, that's what aging is. That's what the breakdown of health is. It's all because of Chet Adam Rishon. Let's say Adam Rishon would have not eaten from Yetzer Das, right? He would have only continued to go from higher refinement to higher refinement, higher refinement. But what we can take out from the fact that everything starts from Chaimer to Tzura, that's its Yesoid v'Shorish, right? That's the way it is b'Shorish. That's what it is at the root level, at the elemental level, right? And what happens, the reversals that happen later down the line, it shouldn't have happened. It really should have gotten more refined and more refined and more refined, even higher and higher Tzuras, which will taka be Lasid Lavo, Bimhera B'Yameinu, and we discussed this Thursday night, Leil Shishi, but by Tchias HaMesim. We discussed this, how the body, the resurrected body, won't decay and die. It'll constantly evolve into a higher tzura of ruchnius, right? So that's what it means. That Dalmach sees that thinks that the existence of evil is in fragments, but not in the cloud of the Metzias. And of course, the prat is bottled to the cloud. So the brachas of me'alef v'atov, and the close is just in between two otiot. It's just in the pratim, right? Dok v'tishkach. You just have to be big-minded to have that, to see it, and that should make you feel better. Have a bigger perspective of what the eye is. Don't just look at the eye as just ends here. The eye is Klal Yisrael. The eye is your place in history, right? Right, but then there's also the idea that the whole Metzias of Ra is a mutant Metzias, that it goes in the reverse flow of Vav back to Hey. That the tzura of, that the Rebbe Shalom, the teva is to, for lack of a better word, evolve and go from Chomer to tzura, and from that to a higher tzura. And this is an artificial pushback. It's regression. And that's what it means. It's easy to turn around be'etzem, because these things should never exist, even in protim. It's just in the reverse flow, from the vav back to the hay, from tzura back to chomer, right? And this is what David HaMelech is teaching us, that we have to realize that why good will ultimately win, because evil is not real like the good is, right? Because it's on the simplest level, it's the difference between the prat and the klal. Of course, the prat is bottled to the klal, right? But even in the prat itself, it's in a mutant direction. It's in a regressive direction against the grain of the way the Briya's be a soidai, which will be restored Merabi Amenu and Ribar that this is the step one to being mizgaber over the Ra, which includes defeating the Yetzer Hara, right? He plays a big game. He barks a loud bark. Right. There's the Chavos HaTalmidim brings a medrash. Lema Yetzer Hara Doima. Right. A man is traveling and there's a guy at the crossroads, no arms, no legs, but he's got a big stick. Right. And everyone passes by, so he threatens them. I want your money, or I'm going to hit you with my stick. He's got a stick. Right. Realizes he has no arms and no legs. He takes the stick and he beats him. Right. That's the Yetzer Hara. It's a chazal. Right, it's as much as it really hurts, but we have to have the emunah that even though it really hurts, it's not real, and that gives us the koach to be mizgaber over it, right? Because if you think it's as real as you're toast, right? The ikar yesod of defeating the Ra, step one, and not to be frightened by the Ra. Right, and not to be put down by it, and not to be discouraged by it, is to understand it's not real like the bracha is. Brachas me'alef va'atav, klolos are just me'ivav ad hey, v'loda shafuchas, and when we realize that hafuchas, this shouldn't even exist, with that, when we come to our quarter, Ribar says, hofech, the klol, bracha, kenyan, b'mer b'yameinu,